There. You ready to go? Is it recording? Are we good?
Green light.
Green lights
We're
on?
good. Okay. Welcome. I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. I think Mr. Shields is on his way. Is that? I guess he is on his way. The first item we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several for the Finance Committee. We have 22-121 advance request, 22-122 budget amendments, 22-123 amend ordinance 7822 CHIP private rehab at 420 North Jefferson, 22-124 fiscal year 22 CHIP program grant application, 22-125 fiscal year 22 CHIP partnership agreement with Brunswick, 22-126 amend ordinance 3522 increase PO purchase of 368 Foundry Street, 22-127 emergency State Route 18 water line extension expenditure Fetchco excavating, 22-128 expenditure ARPA project Core and Main LLP emergency State Route 18, 22-129 memorandum of understanding City of Medina Railway, and 22-130 expenditure for ARPA project Plot Box Cemetery Management System. The first item we have on the agenda is 18-138, amend code section 50508, animals and fowl feeding of deer, wild animals. Mr. Lamb, this came out of your committee.
Thank you. Is this on?
No,
Can you hear that?
No, I can't.
but he's turning them up.
Can you hear it now?
It's getting better, yeah, okay.
Good?
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the ordinance that was passed out of committee on feeding wild animals, I have a suggestion, I think, for tonight. I look at the issue, when looking at the issue and from the meetings that we've had so far, the input that we've had and the work I've done on this for the past couple of months, it would be preferable to pass a complete package of, to have a complete package rather than standalone pieces of legislation, but a complete package that includes all the aspects of, I think, the recognized issues that we have with deer and all the possibilities of how to do the managing. And so my suggestion tonight is that we have gathered quite a bit of information. We've had a lot of input. I have spent a lot of time working on this, trying to be fully educated now with this plan. Unlike we were in the beginning when we had the cats and dogs hooked in, where we really had to be better educated by the public itself, and that worked out pretty well for the cats in particular with the TNR program. So, my goal is that we have a complete agreed-upon approach to this issue, and we have another meeting on the 28th of June where my suggested plan will be, and I'll review that with you ahead of time. So I would think it would be wiser for us now and more prudent to just table this until we can see how it fits into a larger plan.
Okay. I mean, I think this has been going on for many years, as everybody recognizes, and I think I agree that the ordinance of feeding wild animals in and of itself, I don't think, my personal opinion is it wouldn't solve any issues, because I think the issues will continue with respect to deer, of course. Now, I'm not sure throughout the city if others are feeding different types of animals, whether it be possums, raccoons, or what have you, but I would assume that the biggest is, they feed wild birds, of course. I think many people do that. And of course, when you feed wild birds, you're feeding the squirrels and you're feeding the deer, because it all is in one and one. And I guess the question is, doing a more comprehensive plan is probably correct. Now, I don't know what that comprehensive plan makes, and I don't know, maybe we should try to figure out what the direction is of that, and I don't know, what that would entail. Does it entail the management only of non-lethal, lethal? I don't know if it's a combination. I don't know if you're talking about looking at all those issues together to make a determination of what the best plan is with everything based upon the meetings. I think that's what you're saying. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm talking about the meetings that we've had, which have been fairly well attended, the survey that we had done, the general response, the broader response really, which we have not gauged of the entire community, and all the possibilities that have been tried and true in constructing a deer management plan. And no one piece would be effective, because it isn't that simple. To simply do one thing or to rule one thing out is not particularly responsible, because it will take more than just one thing, whether you try to do completely non-lethal or whether you say, I want to call. So I think when you look at how the issues are, all the things that contribute to what we perceive to be the issues, those are the things that need to be put together. And in our earlier discussion that I reviewed, that we've had over the past year and a half, one of the concerns that we had about the not feeding wild animals ordinance was that we clearly did not want to pit neighbor against neighbor. That was one thing we didn't want to do. And so that's why I think how this is constructed, and I have reviewed this with some people, and as much as I think that we worked on it, the law director worked on this so that we would make it as, I think, as not a burdensome, and hopefully not have it neighbor against neighbor. I think that we need to add another line in this ordinance for sure, because my understanding when I have talked about it and how it was talked about at the last meeting was that somebody would actually go first. Like if there was a complaint against, somebody complained because there's a nuisance in my yard because somebody's feeding deer, that someone from the administration would go first and talk to that person, try to resolve it. And then if it continued, they could be charged with a first-degree misdemeanor, and if it continued after that, fourth degree. But in the ordinance, it doesn't anywhere say that there is this conversation first to try to mitigate the problem prior to the first-degree misdemeanor. And I think that's a pretty easy fix for that legislation. Mm-hmm. But as I said before, I think all of this fits better together in a complete form. So if we agree, like I said at the meeting we had last week, if we agree that we're ruling nothing in and nothing out, to see what kind of package we can put together that has broader community support. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. Mm-hmm. And if we get to it and it's accepted, it's great. And if it's not accepted by this body, then we'd have to go back to the drawing board. But I think at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure all of us want to make sure that whatever we do actually addresses what we perceive the issue to be, and it's not just a quick fix, that we can pass this, move along onto something else.
Okay, any questions? Mayor?
I respect everything Mr. Lamb is saying. The fact of the matter is, though, for us to put together a archery program and lift the ban on hunting in the city, the archery season starts in September. It's going to take us a while to put together a plan and then get it back in front of council and get your direction whether you're interested or not, and also get the state to bless it. Those processes are going to take a while, and council is also on break for about 6 weeks during the summer. From the administrative side of it, I would simply like to see if there's any interest, if there is interest, whether it's a majority of interest, in us starting to develop a draft plan for permitting archery hunting. Not that you're committed to it or anything, but give the administration the direction to put together a draft plan, and then we'll do an RCA and have that run in tandem with the special legislation meetings, because otherwise the time is going to be too short and we're going to lose another whole year here.
But I think Mr. Lamb's alluding to, correct me if I'm wrong, that could be part of your deer management plan is possibly what the mayor's talking about. Am I incorrect, or is that correct?
What I just said was not to rule things out, not to rule things in. But clearly, if you look at what we were discussing, right, what we've been discussing, there is no RCA. I mean, we have had talk. The primary talk has been not from my committee, but the primary talk from the administration has been about a culling program. But in that discussion, particularly when we met with the representative from the Department of Natural Resources, the means of it and where it would take place and who would do it were I guess, all over the entire board of how and where and when it could ever be done anywhere. I mean, it included a whole lot of different ways to do culling and where to do the culling and what to do the culling with. And there has been there is actually nothing substantial that has come forward in writing that has anything to do with this issue at this point. So it would be premature to me for us, prior to looking at a complete program, it would be premature to agree to anything yet unless we have that RCA and know exactly what that entails, which would be who would do it, how would it be done, where would it be done, what would the specific permitting program be, where would it take place, who is doing the processing. All those things would need to be hooked in, and minus that.
Well, I guess the question we need to ask then of the members of council here, I know we're missing Jess, is that to put something that together and talk about it, and I think Mr. Worley probably through ODNR and other contacts that he's been with, I would assume, over these couple meetings that you had, has some information of other communities. I don't think we're the first community has done this. That's just my opinion. But I think to give direction for both Bill's committee and the administration to come up with a program, the threshold question in my mind is there enough support of council to allow an archery program to occur as part of a program in the city of Medina? And I guess I just asked that question and just everybody, jump in and give their answer. I mean, I guess we'll start this time with Reggie and go down and just, so we can have some direction. I get it. Bill needs direction and the administration needs direction, because if they're going to work together, they need to know what council wants.
I certainly understand what Mr. Lamb is saying. And I think if we're going to do this, let's do it right, and let's do it as it has been a problem for a long time. I have been in communication with a number of people, not just in my ward, but other members who I see on the street who stop me in the parking lot at the grocery store. And 90% of the people that I have talked to are in favor of culling. None of these people hates the deer. They all think that they're beautiful, magnificent creatures, so it has nothing to do with that. But because it's been a problem, these are people that have educated themselves by going online and reading things such as I have. They've spent a lot of money in their yards to try to protect what they have, their property, to no avail. I've done the same thing. But the consensus of the people that do want a culling program is they want a program that's going to be safe, that is people who are professional at doing this. They want it done in a manner of, they're not in favor of going into somebody's front yard, even if the side neighbors agree to have somebody cull in their yard. They're not in favor of that because they think it's dangerous. So they're along the lines of maybe we do this in the park setting where it's more contained, but do it in a manner in which it's safe. It's safe to the public, and it's well regulated.
Thank you. And to start out, I was never in favor of calling, but like Reggie has said, the majority of people that I've talked to that I represent are in favor of a calling program, that they feel that the population has got to where it's not only dangerous for the citizens, but dangerous for the deer themselves. I would be in favor at this time of, like Reggie said, of hiring professionals in selected park areas, and possibly, if the schools would agree to it, selected schools. I would not vote now, nor would I, while I'm in this office, to because of safety reasons, I would not vote to have a calling program done, like you mentioned, in neighborhoods where, you get a group of neighbors together that said you can do it on my property. I would not be in favor of that. But in starting out with the parks areas, and again, possibly if the schools would agree to it, selected schools, property, I would be agreeable to that.
And I have another comment, if I may, please. And I understand, as well as other people do, that if we choose to do the culling, that is something that's an immediate, we see that immediately, but we also need to have a plan in place for the future, because they're still going to populate, you know, and what are we going to, what are we going to do for that scenario when it does come?
I would agree. I think, thinking about this, you know, thinking about feeding of the animal ordinance and going through the process and hearing the different things of communities, talking to Jansen, you know, over the last few weeks when we had these meetings, just to find out what other communities have done or are doing, and the safety aspect of it. It seems like other communities have had success, but I think you're right, and I think Bill's right in that, you know, you have to have a comprehensive program. And as part of feeding the animals, I guess I'm still a little confused on that with respect to neighbor against neighbor, because if you have a comprehensive program, what I always thought, if you eliminate feeding the animals to a certain extent, they're still going to eat, because as the ODNR gentleman said that Westerfeld or Field, I can't remember what it was, but he indicated that they'll still eat. They're not just going to stop eating. They'll go back to the places that they're used to going to because they were fed there. So I don't know if that really solves the problem or contributes to the problem. I guess it would have to be looked at in a whole package to see how that would be managed and how that would benefit maybe certain areas. As far as the program is concerned, I think that we could look at other communities. As I've been hearing, there's other communities that have done this, have done different types of programs, maybe even have programs with respect to the management beyond just the calling or archery or whatever you want to call it, of the deer and thinning of the herd. And it may be beneficial overall, but I think we're not unlike many other communities in either Ohio or Northeast Ohio that are struggling with this issue. Some are more accepting of it, some aren't. I think I, like many of you, have heard a lot of people getting to the breaking point. I think a few years ago when we first started hearing about this in the ward meetings, people were upset about it and they wanted to manage it more with a non-lethal method. But as time goes on, I've been hearing more and more people say, hey, you just got to get rid of them. I'm frustrated with them. There's just too many of them, and it's causing a nuisance, so to speak, in that they're doing things that they've never done before in people's yards. So I think in a comprehensive program, and if it's part of what Bill's talking about, maybe talking with Jansen and getting more information about how to develop a program with an archery component or a calling component, that's what I would be in favor of, because I don't think, my personal opinion is a program of non-lethal method alone is going to solve any of our problems. That's just my opinion. But Jim, you got it?
I was going to say, from listening to all three of you, I think we're all heading in the same direction. I would agree with everything the three of you said. I think I'm hearing more and more from people who feel like we've been talking about this for a long time, and it's time that we do something and come up with a plan. I agree with Reggie that not only do we do something now, but we've got to do something long-term to be responsible after the fact for whatever we do initially. But I agree. I'm in the same place, and I'm hearing the same thing from the majority of the residents I talked to, both in my ward and in the city.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think when you see the survey from the city that 65% of the residents want some sort of population reduction now, and 93% of my neighbors in Forest Meadows want some population reduction now. I think we should do the population reduction now, whether it's through an archery program, culling program, or whatever. We get that on board now to get something moving, to reduce that population so that when the comprehensive plan is out there, we have fewer deer to work with and make it easier to implement, make those who, how should I say, are suffering damage consistently day after day after day with the deer can see some relief. That's where our allegiance to is to the people who voted us in. And we need to provide them with that relief quickly. So I'm willing to submit that RCA so we can have it through the council process before we go on break.
Well, I guess that's the question for Bill, is going through a program. Do we need to submit an RCA with your program, Bill, since it's really nothing that defines what the parameters would be? Or do you hear, from hearing of all of us, do you want to work with Jansen or whatever and come up with a plan for the 28th meeting? How do you want to proceed? I mean, I guess you heard from all of council that we're willing, or we want some kind of program to lower the number of deer. So I think that will be part of your plan, I would imagine. But I don't know how you want to address that, or do you want to have an RCA submitted, or do you want to just work with coming up with a plan?
Well, you know, with all due respect, the first thing I guess I would want from all of council is to completely educate yourself on deer management plans and exactly what happens if you simply call with regard to with the timeline of reproduction of the deer that you call. And take into account that we are not like many cities in Cuyahoga County that are surrounded by other cities. We are a city that is not a fortress. We don't have a fence. We have a lot of rural property. And that multiplies that number that will come back. And say, okay, so that's an understanding. That will happen. And that's why, regardless of what we do, we need to have a realistic plan. We also need to have a baseline. I said in the very beginning that I want to work for a consensus. 65% of 1,200 people is not the population of adults of this community, which is probably around 9,000 people. And when we're using information to make a decision, which is what I have heard, and I trust that you hear from people, that this is what I'm hearing from my constituents, or this is what I hear from people that I talk to. It's a pretty big community. I mean, 26,000 people. There are a lot of folks here. And there are people that have different opinions than those people who are the loudest, maybe the most sarcastic, maybe the ones that yell more. But there is a lot of people to hear from, but no matter what the opinion is, with no real baseline, I think we were told we have 50 deer per square mile, and that's too many deer, 50 per square mile. I think Cincinnati has 153 deer per square mile, and there's groups in Cincinnati that have fought that have fought legal battles in order to not have any culling take place in places where they live. You know, those things are, you know, I don't think that we can just go on. I'm not saying it's hearsay, but when I say I've talked to constituents, the people I talk to that have an opinion, I might talk to 15 or 20 people. You know, I could go circulate a petition tomorrow about why don't we deal with the truck traffic, which has been an issue here since long before I was the mayor. I think we could survey a lot of things and get some results that would be very difficult to deal with because we know it's not possible. We know we can't deal with the truck traffic in any other way than we've tried. We've widened intersections. We've done what we can do, but we have to have that traffic because it's important for the economy. This issue, I think, requires a deeper education and understanding of how you can deal with it, how you deal with this problem long term, and it also includes personal responsibility. What is the one plant that we hear the most about that people seem to get upset and we keep relating it to the deer come and eat my what? What is that one plant?
Usually it's hostas.
It's hostas. Okay, hostas are not a native plant. Hostas are an Asian plant that was brought into this country sometime in the early 1800s. Maybe it would be a good idea to take some more personal responsibility and seriously look at the things you plant. You can plant things that are less likely to be eaten. There are a lot of things you can do.
I agree with you.
But without a baseline, other
Right.
than I've heard from my constituents, or it's what everybody wants, that's not a really keen place to start. And lastly, from what I have read, it is a lot cleaner to shoot deer. If you're going to call the deer in the park, would be to get professional people or police officers that are trained to shoot them with a gun, because deer are more likely to be injured and run if they're shot through an archery program. Regardless of what we have heard here, if you look at most of the facts and most of the things I've read, if you're going to call, it's recommended that it's done with professional people that know what they're doing and they know how to bring the animal down in a shot so they don't get wounded and they don't run. But as I said in the beginning here, I want to work and build a consensus, and whatever that consensus ends up being, we need to start with a good baseline and the facts and create a program that will work long term, not be a quick fix.
No, I think I agree with you, but I also would only disagree in one regard. I think the majority of council here feel that as part of your program, there has to be some lessening of the herd, so to speak, whatever means that may be. But it sounds like, at least from what we've been hearing, and our consensus would be, that's something that we want in part of the plan would be some type of program to lessen the number. So I
Well,
don't,
then the procedure to do that, though, is simply detail out an RCA and turn that RCA in and stick it in committee, and then we'll have something to work from.
okay.
So
I
we can
mean,
go.
So I'll have that ready for finance on the 20, or on the 27th of June.
Oh, okay, Mayor?
Okay? That'll give Jansen and I enough time to work on it.
So out of fairness, we're using the word controlled hunt and culling interchangeably. And no disrespect, I didn't understand the difference either. The culling is a totally different program. There has to be a plan involved, the state has to approve it. There's a lot more hoops to jump through. If it's a controlled hunt where we lift our ordinance to reduce the number of deer because of the problems we're having here in town, then we can do that without all of those hoops that the culling requires.
And as I understand in talking with Jansen, that's the method he prefers, the archery program.
Correct. Well, and the archery program, out of fairness, I mean, Bill is correct in that the most lethal and most accurate is likely a high-powered rifle. There are also safety concerns with a high-powered rifle that you don't have with archery, and we can choose either just crossbow or crossbow and compound. Crossbow are much more accurate. They're much more consistent with the foot pressure coming off of it because you shoot it like a gun. But Jansen can speak, if you're interested, tonight, of a number of cities that have been doing this program with archery alone safely since 2015. Cities very similar to us with no safety concerns at all.
Is that true?
I didn't have much time to prepare for this evening, but I did do some quick research and have prior knowledge to what the mayor alluded to. There are a number of cities, like he had mentioned, that do allow archery hunting on a variety of different, trying to meet a variety of different goals, and their programs are designed differently. I know that Hudson has an archery program that is run by their police department, where it's permit only. You have to qualify. You have to be shooting from an elevated stand at properties that are pre-approved by the police department, which is very much like what Mr. Westerfield, the second topic that he discussed besides calling when he was here, was the archery by permit. What that does is it puts a lot of the responsibility back onto the resident that wants to try and correct the issue. If they are a hunter, they can try and get their neighbors to sign up to get contiguous properties so that it's safe enough to allow it. A lot of our fees could be recovered through applications. The council has provided some examples from Broadview Heights, along with legislation for a program that the mayor had mentioned back in 2015 that they implemented. I talked to their wildlife officer, and they have had very few issues at all with their program, and they also provided us the statistics of how many hunters were registered and how many deer were harvested at very low expense to the city. Just to run through a list of communities that have either wildlife damage control permits or archery programs, it's Hudson, Mentor, Broadview Heights, Strongsville, North Royalton. The Medina County Parks District has a lottery program. The Cuyahoga Valley National Park, Cleveland Metro Parks, and Summit Metro Parks. So there are a lot of communities who are managing this without calling, sharpshooting, if you will, that are managing it by just lifting their restrictions on hunting within their community, putting the responsibility back on the residents, which is exactly how the state of Ohio manages the deer in Ohio.
I've got a question for Jansen. And I know you haven't had much time to research this, but with the programs that you're talking about, is that something that, I mean, it sounds really interesting. I still would not be in favor of hunting in neighborhoods, but could we start a program like that to specifically target our parks and And the people that sign up for those permits?
That's a good question. That would be considered a controlled hunt if we did it in our parks because we're restricting the area. We could also restrict the date, the times that it's done, and do it on a lottery-based system. That's what Medina County Parks does, and theirs is modeled after Summit Metro Parks.
Okay.
That could certainly be done, but those are things that we need answers on because that's a completely different program. So if we don't have guidance as to which direction we want to go, I'm now writing 3 programs.
Right.
And the sharpshooting option requires much more work because we actually have to have a management plan and we have to go to, work with the state to get a permit for that and obviously the funds that are associated with that. I said it at the special legislation meeting, I'm not a natural resource expert or a wildlife biologist by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm going to be working with these people. The choice to have an archery program would be probably the best accepted and the easiest to do because it's just changing our ordinance and having a permit process.
Thank you.
I think what I'm hearing is that if there's a request made, I mean, you should work on putting together some kind of proposal so we can review it. But I also think that, Bill also needs to be involved with the discussion of, once this occurs, because 20 years ago, we hardly had any deer. We have to get back to the point where the management of that goes back to 20 years ago where everybody had deer, they saw deer sometimes, but not every night in their yards. And I think that's kind of where we want to get back to is a manageable level and people being responsible in their yards with respect to the population and either the feeding, non-feeding, how do you handle all that? Because I remember when I first, I lived here many years, but 20 years ago, it was totally different than it is today. And I think that that's kind of involves not only a lessening of the herd, but it also involves a management of going forward, what you do with that herd, what you have left. Because they're going to fill in. We've been told many times that they're going to fill in from the townships because they have territories and they're just going to keep coming. So there has to be some plan in place. Well, what do you do about that? So I think that has to be involved in it.
It's a good point because if I may real quick, the Division of Wildlife and the USDA who did a follow-up meeting with us after they did their deer survey, there's several components to a management plan. If, culling being one of them to reduce the numbers back to a manageable level, but then you have to do maintenance on that. You can't just do the one-time fix and expect it to work. You're either going to have to do the one-time fix multiple times over a period of years, or you do a sharpshooting program and then balance archery hunting with that as your management maintenance option. So there's a lot of complexities to it. There's no one fix for every community, but if we at least get some guidance on working to what you want, that would be helpful.
We want it like it was 20 years ago. Mayor?
So the word the state used for us when Jansen and Mr. Huber and I met and tried to tell them that this was their responsibility is we've literally created a sanctuary here for them because they can hunt around us, but they have no enemies within the city limits. So this is the place to come to because there's no threat, no natural threat and no threat from man. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I'm not asking or trying to lead any of you in a different direction, but just to ponder between now and we present the plan. We have different areas of the city, for example, down in the southeast area where the lots are actually a half acre. So you put 4 lots together, you're talking about a 2-acre span if all 4 would agree to it. And some of those have a ravine running through it, which makes it that much safer from an elevated position shooting down at the animal below you. So rather than just today saying it should only be in parks or public lands, I just ask that you ponder that a little bit, that there may be some land spaces when coupled together. Now, I'm not talking about taking 10 parcels like down by my house to try to put together 4 acres because the lots aren't that big. But I'm saying some of the larger lots, it doesn't take that many to get to an area of 2 acres, which is a reasonable amount. And if those deer are already coming in there already, it's kind of a good place to thin some.
Correct. Okay. No, Paul?
And along those lines, I know a couple of property owners who have 5 or more acres in the city. They would be willing, on their property, it would just be one property.
There's not many that are that big.
Right, but
yes.
there are a small number of them.
Right.
That they would be willing to allow archers to come on.
Well, I guess what I hear is something needs to be worked on in conjunction with a management plan and some kind of thinning of the herd plan together to come up with a solid solution that, would be workable, I guess. So I don't know. I mean,
I'll be glad to work with Jansen.
but I think Bill has to be involved with what
He can be
he
involved.
has in two.
It actually isn't that I can just be involved, actually. I don't think it's up to Paul, is it?
Well, I mean, we got to have a request.
We don't have
I'll
a,
put
we,
the request,
but we need a request that actually has the detail that you can work with.
Right, I think
That's why we'll
Jansen-
work with Jansen to get that
Well,
together.
if Jansen and the mayor can come up with something from the administration side as part of the request or whatever, or maybe they want to put the request in. I guess it doesn't matter who puts the request
I
in.
think what we still need, though, is we need to have more solid information, because Jansen, you just said that you could put 10 parcels together and that would work. The mayor just said that it would be these 2-acre lots that he knows about that, and again, with all due respect, that it would never be 10 parcels that were small. And I know the police chief's not here, but when I spent time talking to the police chief, with regard to that program where people would go up in trees and be permitted and hunt on a piece of property, his response to me was that nobody would ever be able to put 10 parcels together that were small and he would permit it, and there were very few places in this town where he would ever permit this kind of hunting because of the limited size, that it would be really hard, were his words, to put any parcels, to get these parcels put together, because if you have 20 parcels of land, it would only take 2 or 3 people that aren't in it, and it simply wouldn't work. So if you were going to have an efficient program to reduce the herd and you wanted to do it lethally, I still go back to, I would go back to, I guess now, is seems to me we wouldn't be looking at which one was the most expensive, but which one would be the most efficient and the cleanest kill, and that simply would be what we have talked about before, to close a park and have professional people do it. Even though before this, for year after year after year, when we had these meetings that you noted, these neighborhood meetings, our response always was, and I'm not quite sure what changed, there would never be culling in the city. It would never happen. That was always the response. Am I correct?
I was kind of always for it, but maybe that was a collective response. But, I mean, I think you're hitting it on the head, but there's other areas in the city that maybe we're not looking at it. There's a lot of associations, not in the older parts of the city, but in Ward 3 and 4, where they have open land behind their homes. I know where I live, there's off of, I think it's Thai and Brandywine. Behind there's like a big area of association land that has a creek running through it that leads down to, I think, the railroad tracks, going down all the way down to Brandywine. And then behind Brandywine, there's a lot of open space land that butts up against the Montville Township. There's a big area, I think that's where you were talking about a trail at one point off of Goldcrest. So in my area, I know that, and I think some in Ward 4, not so much down by Dover and all that, because those houses are very close together, but I think there were some land that had association property just for natural drainage and stuff like that they left as open space related to development. But you're right, I think everybody's got to look at that, and maybe that's part of, you got to come up with a plan, like everybody's saying. Nobody knows exactly what, and Bill's correct. It's not going to be smaller lots. There's confusion about exactly what we're talking about, so I don't know what the answer is, but, maybe Jansen, I mean, you're the one that is the closest to it and is in charge of the parks and has the relationships with ODNR and stuff that came, and maybe you can get more information from them of what they do, because I can't imagine the cities that you listed off were that dissimilar to some of those cities, and especially if the national park and the Summit Metro Parks and the county parks are doing programs, they're doing it for a reason, because that would be the spot where I would think they wouldn't do it, but evidently they are doing it. So, I mean, I guess just come up with a plan. I don't care who puts the request in, but you're correct, we don't have a request. Let's get something that has a definitive direction of what you want to see happen, and we can comment on it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, any other questions?
Yes, so,
Go ahead.
so there is still going to be that third meeting then, Bill? You still planning on having that third meeting then? Community meeting?
Is it on the schedule? I think it's scheduled.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Paul?
could we have that request in so we could look at it and start the discussion on the June 27th finance meeting? That gives Jansen about a month to put that together, so that should we decide to move forward with some sort of population reduction plan for the deer, that we can get it decided on before we go on break, please?
I guess, I mean, I think, well, my understanding is, Paul, you said that you may put a request in, but my opinion is more appropriate maybe coming from Jansen or somebody, because he has the most information. And Jansen, if can put together something that gives us a little, something to look at and guidance, you know, and not only talk about the thinning of the herd, but any other type of management as far as maintenance is concerned going forward with respect to maybe even including this feeding of the animals, if that's appropriate or not appropriate to include within the comprehensive plan that Bill was talking about, that may be helpful,
Okay, I agree with you, Jansen's.
right? I mean, I
Right
think so.
So that will not go to special legislation, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I think he's going to put the request in, and then once we get the request, then maybe your meeting is the 28th, where whatever comes about that, maybe that could be talked about too at that special legislation meeting if if you're okay with that, because that's part of the plan too. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, that's,
I think it has to go to, I think the procedures are that it would go to committee, right? If you turn an RCA, does it go to committee?
yeah, I think that would go to the committee, but I guess the question would be, knowing the timelines, we can't have 3 meetings from, June, July, and August, because then it would never happen. I think hearing from
But that's not our timeline. We didn't start this with a timeline.
well, no, I'm just bringing it up now, saying, I think the timeline is, what I'm hearing from people, correct me if I'm wrong, that the program would be implemented in the fall. That's kind of what I heard.
Have we adopted a program yet?
No, but I'm just saying, that's what I
That's
heard,
our
that they want a
timeline.
program adopted by the fall, so it could be implemented. That's what I hear.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, Mr. Lamb, the biggest complaint that I'm getting from the residents is you've had this for anywhere from 9 to 13 years, and nothing is done. They're tired of hearing nothing's done. We need to move this forward to satisfy the needs and the wishes of the voters, of the taxpayers. That is not in any way, shape, or form meant to minimize your hard work that you've done in trying to get a plan together that is comprehensive, that is inclusive of those who wish to try to coexist with the deer. That will be included, but as a separate part of this, we need, before this all is complete, we need to get this population reduction of the deer moving forward quickly. First of all, if you look at the deer in the wintertime, how skinny they are, they're coming out and they're eating arborvitae now. We've got one left on our yard that has got very little from the winter, from their harvest, the way they eat. They're skinny. There's hardly any food for the population that's in there once the flowers quit growing. There's reports of destruction in our parks. There's reports of destruction just about everywhere. It's the humane thing to do. Their food supply is reduced in the wintertime. The humane thing to do is to reduce the population so that those that survive have food, have a larger choice of food, if you will.
Well, I think, Paul, you're.
The thing is, Paul, this is not hard work. I'm just trying to do the right thing and actually do the work. And it's important that you tell the truth. Don't make up a story that I have had this for 13 years. If you
No, I
would,
didn't say you did. I said council has had
no,
this
you
for
didn't
this
say
long.
that. You can go back and look at the record.
Well, we have
We have talked about this for a number of years. This issue that was on the agenda tonight could have been passed when it first came to this body. Went through special legislation twice. And it was an agreement that everybody agreed with it, even though the cats and dogs had been stuck in. But when 4 or 5 people showed up and opposed it, the only 2 people that were willing to vote for it were you and me, even though it had gone through special legislation twice. And all this anecdotal information, all this, I hear what the people say, I hear what the people say. We are here to make solid, meaningful decisions, not work under an arbitrary timeline, not cast aspersions on people, not make things up. You know, we have a really interesting history in this country of beating nature down. It is what we have done. We do it time and time and time again. And this is just one more example. The biggest crop in this country is grass. It brings no value, no monetary value, but it is the biggest crop. And what do we do to the grass? Spend a lot of money to fertilize it. Then we poison it so it looks green. And we kill the worms, we kill the grasshoppers, we kill the bees, we kill the crickets, we kill the dandelions, we kill the things the bees need. That's what we always do. Sometimes there are other ways, things that we need to look at. Maybe to be, Paul used the word humane. The only humane thing you can do is to shoot the deer because they starve in the winter. We just heard that Medina is a cornucopia. That's why they come, because there's so much to eat. They wouldn't keep coming if there was nothing to eat because they would move along. I'm not sure how humane, when you use the word humane and killing, something is not very compatible. But it does sound to me like a quick fix. And now we want to hurry up and get another program, another suggestion put in, another request put in, because there never was a request actually put in. The only thing that was sitting here was this one thing that council backed down on as soon as 4 or 5 people showed up. And it turned out the 4 or 5 people were right. The cats and dogs never should have been included in this wild animal ordinance, ever. So I don't see it, Paul, as working hard. I try to make sense when I talk. I'm not attacking people. I'm simply trying to get something done that will matter. It's nothing different than what I've tried to do here all the time I've been here.
Well,
And I have actually a record, Paul, of getting things done for this community. I don't just sit here and yell at the end of a meeting.
I think that going forward here, remember, there's 7 of us, well, 6 of us today, elected officials, and I think if we get a plan together, I think collectively we have to make a decision. Not one of us can make the decision on what happens or doesn't happen. If we all feel something should happen, or a majority of us feel, I guess, because that's usually how it works in a democracy, let's just go with that and see where it leads us. But we need something to start with. And I think that's what the whole point is here. We could talk about all these issues, but these issues we're talking about now are issues we talk about once you submit us something. So I think get us something and then we'll make a determination on the timeline or whatever as a group of what we want to see, and we'll take it from there. I think that's the only thing we should do, and I think that's the responsible thing as a legislative body we should do. So just submit that and we'll go forward from whatever you guys provide us, okay? Okay, thanks. Okay, going to 22-121, advance request of number 001 to 380. Who's this, Keith?
Yep. I'm hoping this will be less controversial than your last item. This is just the mechanics behind how we handle a grant. The grant is coming in for the Gates Mills project. We are lending the money from the general fund to the grant fund. We'll do the project, and then we'll be reimbursed, and we'll repay the advance.
For 387,995?
Yep.
Any questions?
Move to
Mr. Chair?
approve.
Second?
Real quick, what's the criteria for getting the money back from the government?
This is Pat's grant, but it's generally that you have to show receipts that you've spent the money, the project's completed, things like that. The engineer has to sign off on that.
Okay, so we wait until the project's completed?
Right.
Okay,
We
thank
we
you.
generally get reimbursed after all the expenditures are made.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22-122 budget amendments. We have 2022-18 miscellaneous. Keith?
There's a number of things in here. A lot of them deal with the grants and advances, including the advance we just talked about. There's the lights that we talked about, I think it was last week at 57 and Sugar House. That's in here. And then the South Court Tower painting.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 22-123, amend ordinance 7822, chip rehab 420 North Jefferson. Who's gonna, Mr. Dutton?
Yeah, this is a home rehabilitation project at 420 North Jefferson. It was originally approved for $67,623. We found some additional roof replacement needed which will increase the cost by $8,247. So the total cost will be at $75,870.
Any emergency clause?
Yes, so we're in the middle of the project, and it's needed to keep it moving along and address this before other things can be done.
Any further questions?
Move to approve with emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22-124, fiscal year 22 chip grant application. Mr. Dutton?
Yeah, so this is our program year 22 chip grant application. Again, as we have in the past, we're partnering with the city of Brunswick, which increases our likelihood of getting funded and increases the amount we can receive. We've held one public meeting in March. We plan to have another on June 2nd. The amounts that we're asking for are similar to past years, $390,000 for rehabilitation, $210,000 for home repair, $16,000 for tenant-based rental assistance, $79,000 for administration, and $5,000 for fair housing.
Any other questions?
Move to approve with emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22-125, fiscal year 22 chip grant partnership agreement with the city of Brunswick. Mr. Dutton, I think you kind of explained this, but go ahead.
Yeah, that goes along with the CHIP application. This is our partnership agreement, and just a little bit of clarification in the attachment there. So we actually have more money in that chart than Brunswick does. That's just some residual program interest funds that we've accumulated over the years.
An emergency clause for the same reason, I assume?
Yeah, it's due June 22nd, yeah.
Any further questions?
Move to approve with emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22-126, amend ordinance 3522, 368 Foundry Street, purchase. Keith?
We need a few more dollars finish this out.
It looks like, when's the closing?
Tomorrow, Greg says.
So that's why the emergency clause is requested, I assume. All right, any other questions?
Move to approve with emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 22-127, expenditure to Fetchco Emergency Route 18 Waterline Extension ARP funds. Who's handling Pat stuff?
I
Mr.
am.
Bacoli, Mayor? Somebody?
Yeah, so with the ODOT project, just to bring council up to speed, Mr. Coyne and I talked about this when we ran this through Board of Control to get it passed, subject to council's approval. ODOT didn't want to go through the hassle of getting land acquisition to extend the water line all the way to where the project ended on the west at Albert. So they stopped it across from the hospital, which every time we've done a project, a street project in the city, we've tried to do all of the infrastructure. Now this would be outside of the right-of-way, but this has been a problematic line. To tell you how problematic it was, first of all, we approved Board of Control, and we're asking you to approve to go an extra 1,000, 1,100 feet to get to the end of the project at Albert, because it's all excavated and ready to go. The problem was we had to put a temporary line in to keep people in water, dig, because there wasn't enough room with the right-of-way to move it anywhere. We have to dig up the old line, put the new line in place, charge it, test it, and then tap everybody in to the new line. So this is an amount of money for Fetchco to do that. When they took up the first 200 feet of the old line, they can't even lift it out in a piece. It's so fragile and breaking apart that it's just breaking off in chunks. In that first 250 or 200 feet, there were 12 or 15, 15 patches in the first 200 feet, and that's less than 20% of the project. So you can imagine as we keep moving what we're going to find. Our intent is in the future to try to find grant money and go all the way to Spring Grove, but that road is not being tore up. This was the time for us to do this. And just to tell you how well things came together, ODOT met with us on a day's notice. Fetchco met with us on a day's notice and told us if we could get the pieces and parts to do the job, they would pull another crew, so they didn't delay ODOT on the project that they were working, to work the water line while they were putting in curbs and stabilization, everything else. Every time they go to compact that, as you do with the new road, it's breaking the water line again. We've had 4, 5, 6 in the last few days just because of what's going on there. So this new line, my plea to you is this new line was that necessary that we had to get this done. And we're asking for the emergency clause because they're working on it even on Saturdays as we speak. And the whole thing will be done in the next couple of weeks.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Mr. Pacoli?
If I may, Mr. President, the account number, can I ask what account number you have on your paperwork with respect? This is American Rescue Plan Act funding project.
171-0533-53313.
Okay, so Teresa and I were on a email going back and forth, and I know this got put together quickly, so the correct number should be 171-0610-54411.
The change has been noted.
Thank you.
What was the last?
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion, including the emergency clause and the change of the account number.
Second, including the emergency clause and the change.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22-128, exception to Core and Main LLP Emergency Route 18 Waterline Extension ARPA funds. I assume this is the same thing, Mayor?
Yes, these are the pieces and parts it took to do the project.
All right, any other questions?
Do we need to change this account?
The account number here is the same as it was on the other page. It needs to change to the same as the one we did there.
So reflect the same change in the account number? Okay,
Thank you, that's what I was going to clarify, so.
okay.
I'll make a motion then, including the emergency, make a motion to approve, including the emergency clause and the change in the account number.
Second, including the emergency clause and the change in the account number.
Trester, you have the account number, correct? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22-129, Memorandum of Understanding, City of Medina Railway. Is this Mayor? Is this you?
So on behalf of Patrick, this is a new memorandum of understanding between the parties. We had waived, as you know, for a while, the annual fee, access fees, and they were only paying the per-car fee. Now we're seeing the reserve come down and some future maintenance issues we're going to need to deal with. So the group agreed to pay $10,000 a year, again, starting in January 1 of 2022. The last time we had a rail meeting, it was agreed that we would reduce the per-car fee for spray products, and that information didn't get over to finance for the billing purposes, so they were charged at the higher rate, which was $100, and we're supposed to be charged $10 because of the volume of cars, so we owed them a credit. But out of fairness, in the meeting, Spray Products said after they geared up for all these lines and expecting all these rail cars, a couple of the jobs were pulled away from them as the COVID started to slow down. So the committee then agreed to reduce it from $100 to $20 a car because the volume of cars just was not what they originally projected. Doing all of that, there's a credit owed to Spray Products of $13,600. They're going to take their $10,000 off the top for this year, off the top of the credit, and then they will use the $3,600 for their per-car fees until they use that up. So they'll be made whole.
Thank you. Any further questions? So there'll be a modification to the
And
ordinance.
we need the emergency clause.
Oh, right, and I think there's been a modification to the ordinance that's submitted by the number that you just mentioned, the $13,000 number, because this is only 12.8 in here, so that'll have to be as part of the motion.
Yes, yes.
And just so you know, the city contributes, part of this agreement, the city contributes an amount equal to the access fee that each of the customers contribute. So you'll see an appropriation for our transfer for 10,000 as well.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve with the emergency clause and the dollar amount amended.
Second, including the emergency clause and the monetary amount.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 22-130, expenditure for a plot box cemetery management software, ARP aid funds. Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to purchase and implement Plotbox cemetery management software at Spring Grove. We've been working collaboratively with the Friends of the Cemetery and have discussed this at length at the Cemetery Commission regarding the need to update our processes at Spring Grove. Right now, a lot of what we do is all on paper maps, paper burial cards that are filed at the cemetery and here at City Hall. Everything is updated by hand. We do have a access program currently that we're using with no support that's stored locally on our servers here that was created in 2004 with help from the Friends of the Cemetery that we use to find burial records on our computer. We're starting to see a trend in a lot of genealogy requests and people who are interested in that, who are doing a lot of research at the cemetery, which in turn is leading to a lot of questions in our office. And we're at a point where we would substantially benefit from having a true management system to help us clean up our processes, improve our record keeping. And Plotbox offers a integrated part of their program, which is true GIS drone overlays maps for our cemetery, to where our cemetery staff can take a tablet out into the field when they're doing lot sales with families, whether it be pre-need or an immediate need. We can pull up drone imagery, which will color code lots that are available, which are sold, which have internments in them, so that in real time we can go out in the field and pull up these records and be able to provide a better service to the families without digging through multiple piles of papers and cabinets, hoping that our records are correct. So a lot of the expense in this request is data migration. It's about a 6 to 8 month process with Plotbox. They are a global company. They're based in Ireland. They originally started in the United States and California, and they've migrated east. Throughout COVID, they stopped building brick and mortar offices, and a lot of their work is done remotely. We vetted 3 different software providers since April of 2019. We had over 14 meetings with the Friends of the Cemetery Commission. Nino sat in on a lot of them, where we went through demos of each software and the services that they provided, and they were all vastly different. Plotbox fits our niche because it meets the needs of the Friends of the Cemetery, who are interested in improved records and 24/7 access with walk-to-grave directions, and it also meets our needs as a city, that it helps streamline our processes and make our workflow better in the office. So after our last meeting, finance meeting, where we were talking about implementing or converting a part-time labor to full-time labor, I thought it might fit in with the ARP fund use. I sent an email to Lori, who forwarded along to our legal counsel, and they believe that this purchase did fit within those guidelines. As you know, we're seeing an increase in needs at our cemetery, and this will certainly help us move along in the future. This is pending Mr. Huber's review. I gave it to him actually today. So it'd be contingent upon that. And we'd be asking for authorization for Mayor Handel to sign the proposal and the statement of work so we can get the implementation rolling. This was also reviewed by Darren and our IT department a little while ago, but it also took us a while to work through all this. The data is stored on Microsoft Azure servers, and we feel it's a pretty robust program that hopefully will serve us well.
Mr. Huber?
I just got this afternoon. I looked at it. All the department heads know that the city of Medina is not supposed to sign a contract where we are indemnifying the people we're contracting with. And then if you look at this, and this contract has that clause in there, so the question becomes whether or not this provider is willing to take that out. And the other issue is that they want to litigate any issues in New York. And they're stating that the choice of law would be New York law. And that we've got to go through an arbitration process, which I don't agree with. So I guess I'm not sure whether this entity is going to agree to take those clauses out or not.
I guess we can approve it subject to your approval of the document, but you're correct, we cannot as a governmental entity indemnify, so is that okay with you, Jansen?
Yeah, I actually have a marked up copy in the mailbox over there with those crossed out. So we were just told to cross out everything that we want changed and then get back to them. They've worked with tons of communities in Ohio, so we just need to mark it up and get it back. I'm pretty confident we can work through it.
Great, Mr. Piccoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I want to thank Jansen and James. They have demonstrated a lot of patience. We've been discussing this database for a long time, since Mr. Gill was on the commission, and Denny was a big help as well, so they were very patient, and we're hopeful that this can get passed. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rose?
Thank you, and thank you for filling me in with Darren looking at it. But a couple of questions. Number one, is there any need for this software package to work with Keith's package in finance at all?
It has that capability. There is an option. They didn't include it in this price because we'd be essentially changing the way we do business right now.
Okay.
When I said it's a robust program, it can be integrated with any financial software. With QuickBooks, it's designed for a variety of different applications because cemeteries they're managed by different organizations, Catholic cemeteries, so on and so forth. So yes, to answer your question, it could.
Okay, all right, just looking forward. And then I know that this is backed up to the cloud anywhere. Do you keep a local copy of the backup anywhere? So should the internet go poof, you can go to a storage place, plop it into the laptop and have your information, at least as current as the last backup?
I'll have to get that answer and get back to you.
Yeah, that, I would strongly urge you to have that here. It's important, okay, just in case something happens somewhere. And then I noticed that I'm trying to find it now, there was some data types not included, trust contracts, commission, and memorials. Does that affect you in any way, shape, or form? It was under the data migration.
No, it doesn't affect us. If you look at page 8, that is the proposed solution for our cemetery. So when I said we had numerous meetings, we kind of went through, they initially quoted everything that they offer, and then we reeled it into what is realistic and what would we actually use.
Okay.
So everything is on page 8 with records, deeds, plots, scheduling, interments, contracts, and a branded ever after version, which is the ability to search graves remotely.
I thought that was good. I like that. Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Simpson?
Thank you. I just wanted to expand on what Nino said. I want to thank Nino for his help, Jansen and James Hoyt, our sexton. Also, the Friends of the Cemetery has been real instrumental in this, especially I'm going to shout out to Dr. Rob Wilder, who's worked closely with the team to get this to the point that it's at right now. So thank you.
All right, any other questions?
And I'll make a motion to approve the plot box cemetery management software purchase, subject to final approval of the law director.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else to come before finance before, it looks like we recess into executive session?
If not, I'll make a motion for council to go into executive session at 7:10 PM to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official to include the mayor and the law director.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Coin,
Yes.
Hare,
Yes.
Lamb,
No.
Simpson,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee or official, coming back to finance, adjourning from finance, and moving on to council, taking no action with anything discussed in executive session. We are in recess.